Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Keystone Agricultural Producers Advisory Council meeting for March the 27th. My name's Jill Verway, and currently I am president of Keystone Agricultural Producers. Okay, I will go on to my president's remarks. Good morning, everyone. My name's Jill Verway, and I'm currently president of Keystone Agricultural Producers. I want to thank everyone for attending today's meeting before we get busy with spring farming activities, which will be coming up soon. I don't know about you, but the cold has certainly slowed things down at this time of year. On behalf of the team at KAP, we look forward to working with you for the benefit of all Manitoba farmers and our economy. Today, I'll be providing a brief update on various activities and initiatives undertaken by KAP in the recent months, particularly focusing on key events, collaborations, our advocating efforts, and a development regarding the fuel supply that requires our attention. Additionally, today's agenda includes an update from Clean Farms regarding their transition to retail collection sites, as well as the University of Manitoba diploma students who have submitted a resolution for discussion today. And so let's make sure that we have a lot of questions and some good discussion and engagement from everyone to show the students the grassroots in action. We've had an eventful fall and winter with significant focus on strengthening our team and engaging with our members. A few months ago, we welcomed Olivia Cluse to our operations coordinator and Shona Fraser as manager of the membership services for our team. In November and December, we held a number of all of our district annual meetings across the province to connect with our grassroots members and elect new board members. And I had the opportunity to actually attend the majority of those meetings, and there were a couple that I was able to attend virtually as well. In January, we ratified at our board meeting the KAP's new strategic plan over the next 4 years, outlining our directions and priorities. Then on to our 40th annual general meeting. Most recently, we celebrated this special milestone at our AGM and conference in January, featuring a diverse range of speakers and guests. This year was a big one for KAP. We celebrated 40 years. The theme of our annual meeting was past, present, and future. And as a nod to our history, a reflection of the current state, and emphasizing our focus of the future of KAP. Panels are focused on variety of topics, including an inside look on the federal advocacy in Canada, current issues being discussed, the importance of succession planning and risk management of producers, and why agriculture matters to all Canadians, and the role that our sector has in building the future, and also to look back at the past of KAP and outlining the priorities for years to come. There were also some updates from our key partners who are delivering programs and resources for our industry. Members heard updates from Hub International about the benefits available to KAP members. We do have the KAP annual report, comprehensive report on our website, and you can get to it as KAP 2023update.ca. And certainly, if you go to your KAP most recent KAP alert, that email is on there, or website is on there as well. This site not only contains an update from the past years, but also videos of the KAP's former presidents. This past January, we attended Canadian Federation of Agriculture's AGM, where actually we had a number of resolutions that were forwarded on from our AGM and the last year, as well as we met with a number of meetings with MPs and with other staff on the Hill. That included meeting up with over 8 or 9 MPs and advocating on our key priorities. During those meetings, the 3 priorities being sustainability. We had specific asks or lobbying on the interswitching as well as C-234, which is the bill currently back in the House in regards to exemption of fuels used for buildings and for grain drying. I would like to share some exciting news with the Farm Safe program, securing $1.5 million over the next 5 years through Sustainable Agricultural Partnership, ensuring continued support for farm safety initiatives. This was announced by our provincial ag minister, Minister Kostyshin, at the supper of our AGM. We also coordinated free farm-specific first aid training in partnership with Manitoba Canola Growers Association and St. John's Ambulance. And 2 of those events were held, empowering producers with essential life-saving skills. And again, another outreach or an engagement event where we're actually reaching out to a number of producers maybe that have not been out to our KAP events. We're actively engaged with pork producers and Maple Leaf to promote adoption of pork-specific farm safety guide developed jointly with Manitoba Pork, enhancing safety practices within their sector. We supported the Manitoba Biosystems School Students project to design a rollover tractor training course aiming to demonstrate proper safety procedures to prevent tractor rollovers. And through funding, training, and initiative projects, KAP continues to reaffirm our commitment for farm safety and protecting the well-being of Manitoba farming community. Update on Bill C-234. KAP has been heavily engaged in trying to push Bill C-234. And as you know, this bill has been KAP's top priority for some time now, and we've discussed it with numerous MPs, senators, industry stakeholders, and members. We are working with our partners in Ottawa through the Agricultural Carbon Alliance, co-chaired by Dave Carey of the Canadian Canola Growers and Scott Ross of CFA, or the Canadian Federation of Agriculture. We are disappointed to see the Senate vote to support of the committee report that included some harmful amendments. We remain engaged with our partners in Ottawa to now lobby the members of Parliament to reject the senator's change to the bill so that it is restored to the original form and sent back to the Senate for approval again. Under the Advanced Payment Program, KAP is pleased with the recent announcement made by Agriculture and Agriculture Food Canada regarding the Advanced Payment Program. If you're unaware, the department recently declared an increase to the interest-free portion of the Advanced Payments Program to $250,000. KAP actively lobbied alongside provincial and federal partners over the last few months to ensure that this APP limit was increased. The APP, a vital lifeline to our farming communities, has undergone significant enhancement. One is greatly to alleviate the financial strains faced by our producers. As you will all know, farming is a time-sensitive endeavor, and the availability of interest-free loans enables producers to make essential purchases for upcoming growing season. The increased interest-free portion acknowledges the inflationary pressures that have burdened the ag sector over the past few years. We celebrate that this is positive development. We urge for a sustained commitment to addressing these evolving needs of our ag community. We hope that the increased interest-free portion can serve as a new baseline, ensuring that the APP remains responsive to the challenges posed by raising farm expenses in the years ahead. And there was considerable effort done in reviewing what the usage was. So coming and agreeing to, we're happy with the agreement of increase to the $250,000 level. As for the fuel question that I've highlighted with Imperial Oil, I'd like to provide a brief update on the current situation regarding the fuel supply to the greater Winnipeg region, particularly in light of recent developments concerning Imperial Oil's pipeline shutdown. Imperial Oil's pipeline shutdown is expected to last for 3 months, raising concerns about fuel supply and potential economic impacts. Government actions, including engaging with the major fuel suppliers and activating a command structure to oversee the repairs and mitigate economic impacts. The forecasts in South Dakota and North Dakota may cause delays in fuel deliveries in Saskatchewan and Alberta, leading to potential delays and price increases at the retail outlets. Fuel suppliers assured stakeholders that there is no issue with fuel supply in Canada or the province, but the delays in delivery and price increases will remain potential concerns. Agricultural needs are included in the fuel distribution planning process to ensure supply meets demand. While challenges have been reported by 204 Fuel, no significant impact on the ag sector are anticipated at this time. The Manitoba government is developing a plan to address critical fuel users, including those in the food industry. Manitoba Transportation and Infrastructure is offering temporary permits for increased fuel hauling to maintain uninterrupted supply during the pipeline repair period. Imperial Oil is utilizing alternative transportation methods, such as rail and trucks, to compensate for pipeline shutdown. We will continue to engage with the provincial authorities and monitor developments closely to keep you informed. KAP is actively engaged on this issue and recently shared a brief with our commodity group members regarding this topic. The situation remains fluid. KAP is committed to staying vigilant and proactive in addressing any challenges that may arise. As we enter spring and summer months with the increase of our field work, I want to remind you that it is an opportunity to make sure that you have the appropriate safety processes and procedures in place at your farm. Farm Safe Manitoba is free and confidential service for Manitoba farmers. That is your one-stop shop for farm safety information and resources. Our amazing farm safety consultant, Morag, will work with you directly to answer any safety concerns ranging from simple to complex, and can provide you with resources like a farm safety notice board to put up at your farm. For more information, or if you want to set up a consultation with Morag to talk about the safety on your farm, please visit farmsafemanitoba.com to get started today. I'd like to again thank everyone for being here today, and I look forward to a positive meeting filled with robust discussion. So if I go back to my agenda at this point in time, I'd now like to call David Rourke had a question in regards to the co-op fuels. At this point in time, any of the effects have been localized in the Winnipeg area, but I can certainly find out from where the information that I've been provided, it hasn't affected co-op fuels. Neil, do you have any other further information on that? You've been involved with the meetings on the fuel.
No, we don't have any more information. We have submitted a number of questions to government regarding the fuel supply in rural Manitoba, so we're still waiting to hear back on that.
We certainly will update the membership as we get that information in, David. Any other questions from my comments?
Yes, I have my hand up, Jill. It's less.
Okay, you'll have to, I don't see your hand up. Okay, go ahead, Les, your question?
Yeah, we booked fuel and I was guaranteed the price. And they explained to me that it would be coming by truck from, I think, from Edmonton into Manitoba.
Yeah.
So they weren't alarmed about shortage at all, and they were very good about we waited a week to get it, but the price was guaranteed the day we booked it. So
yeah, thanks for that, Les. And Chuck also had a comment here that, and it like in our area as well, the co-op fuel supplier is expecting in his area, little or no impact because of how their fuel is delivered. But like I mentioned before, we will keep everyone up to date as to any changes as we go forward into spring. Any other questions, comments? Okay, in your package, you would have a financial statement. So I will now call Jake Eyre to do just a brief audit report on the financial statement that is attached. Maybe go to the next screen, Neil, to show this. There we go. You can go ahead, Neil and Jake.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Jill, can you guys all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. As Jill said, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jake Eyre, Vice President at KAP, currently filling in for Kevin here. He was unable to attend the last meeting, so I don't think it's very fair to make him do the report when he wasn't briefed on it. So go easy on me. This is my first kick at the cat. So anyways, starting with the revenue here. So probably notice revenue is only at 5% of annual budget. We would expect around 25% of this at the time. This is due to we haven't been able to finalize membership revenue with Unionware, which is our membership software. So this issue has been addressed and resolved with the Unionware team. The membership revenue will be up to date in our next financial statements. And I'll talk about that a bit after too, where you're going to say it reflected. Individual memberships have not been recorded yet due to issues with, again, the program. This has been fixed and the accurate number will be reflected in the next statement. So total paid members to date are 1976. This will result in a total membership revenue of $544,644.88. Commodity group memberships, our 2024 invoices have just gone out and we will be receiving payments over the next few months. Farm Safe Manitoba revenue, we're happy to announce and share we've received our SCAP funding. So we received $1.5 million over the course of the next 5 years. So that's huge for the organization and huge for Farm Safe Manitoba. We will be submitting our report, which lines up with the government's fiscal year end. So that's March 31st. So we should see those funding dollars reflected in May of 2024. As well, thank you to our commodity group member at Manitoba Pork. We've received revenue support from them in $15,000. Our HR labor program, we have received $30,000. Annual meeting sponsorship, we've had commitments of sponsorship for $34,000. To date, we have received $22,000. So that's just with invoicing and some of these groups getting back to us. Annual meeting ticket sales, this was below what we budgeted. This was the first time that we had done this. So a bit of a learning curve there. So we did receive $22,367 in sales. If you want to go to the next slide, Neil. Expenditures. At the current time, we are approximately 24% of annual expenses, which is right on budget. Our annual meeting expenses for the annual meeting are close to what we budgeted. And I know you'll notice the increase every year, but you can go into the weeds on that one. But probably the biggest thing is you talk about hotel costs. I know good luck trying to get a hotel in the city of Winnipeg for less than, say, $270, $280 a night these days. We've seen that expense increase in not only the accommodation, but the food everywhere. And that's across all industries in the country. Staff travel slightly higher at this time of year. This is a busy time for staff. AGM, CFA in Ottawa, and as well some other meetings out of province. Board meetings, you'll notice this cost is high in January. This is because of the number of meetings so far. This will balance out. We're kind of front loaded with our meetings where we have the first, say, January, February, March. We have a lot there. And then, of course, as the farming season intensifies and gets more active, we slow down. And so we have less meetings in that, say, April to July, August period. Young farmer, We need to secure our SCAP dollars. This process will begin again after the government fiscal year ends, so April 1st, 2024. So that will line up with the second intake period. Computer management, KAP has now moved from using a server to having everything cloud-based, which requires a monthly service fee. So this is, security risk and something that the team had identified. So they've moved to do that. So these figures offset ongoing maintenance of our server system. General expenses now include subscription costs. So you see that has increased for services, including web platforms. So Zoom, WebEx, website, Microsoft. These were previously in communications. Legal and professional fees. We'll be using additional funds for ongoing governance work and continuing on with our strategic plan. Insurance costs have seen slight continued increases. So as at the end on this financial document, you will see we are sitting at a deficit of $456,468.69. So I think it's on the next slide, if you go to the next slide. So you'll see, if you look at the accounts payable producer line, which is at 988,846. So this is supposed to be reflected in there, but again, due to the issues with the software, that's where it showed, but it does balance out. It was just an error on the documents. So with that, I will conclude my financial report and head it back to Jill.
Thank you, Jake. Thanks, Emily. If you go to the next, sheet, it'll show actually the payable line that Jake was referring to. Here it's showing at 988. The correct amount that Jake alluded to at that $530 some thousand, if that is input or showing under individual memberships, it actually shows that we'll be at a positive $10,000 at the end, roughly at the end of the period, which is in line with our budget. So even with some increases in some other line numbers, we're in line with our budget.
I apologize, Jill. I was following along on the package on my computer, not on the Zoom, so I couldn't see where we're at in the slide.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Thank you. Is there any questions from the financial statements before I ask for a motion to accept the financial statement from the body?
I have my hand raised.
Oh, sorry, Les, I can't see your hand. Okay, go ahead.
That bank control is now over $900,000. Is there any interest?
There's interest on a portion of it, less, but we do have to keep a certain amount liquid on the cash side with checks that are outstanding, and a number on that period at the end of January. There was a number of outstanding rebate checks that were sent out and refunds. So we do have according to our bylaws and our procedures that we have with the finance committee, there is a portion that is kept in savings at all times, and then the remainder is in our just a regular checking account. Any other questions from the body?
There's a question in the chat, Jill.
I was just going to type back to Mike, Jill. So we went through a cybersecurity audit, Mike, and one of the recommendations was that we move to this cloud-based software, but I'm not sure regarding any laws of location of the cloud-based storage. I know this was just recommended by the firm that we used for the cybersecurity audit, so we took their recommendation.
Oh, thanks, Mike, for that question. And just another comment on that. It was actually recommendations from the company that we carry insurance to change from a server-based to a cloud-based, so that we could actually complete an audit for security purposes for KAP and the functions and information that we have. So we are making all of these moves on the recommendation so that we have the proper insurance in place. So this is one of the first steps that we have taken to be able to complete the audit, and then lastly to be able to have the proper insurance in place for KAP. And Neil has actually made a comment here that I don't need a motion to accept the financial statements. That was done by the board, but I will certainly entertain any other questions that anyone has on the financial statements. Other than Mike's question, was there any other questions? I don't see anything coming up on the chat. Anybody else's hands up? Thank you very much, Jake. And we will now, in your packages, you would have received in-depth deck of information from our general manager and operations report. Unfortunately, Brenna was not able to attain or be at our meeting this morning. She actually had, her father was having surgery this morning, so she is unable to attend. But certainly you can go through the general manager and operations report in detail, but I am going to hand it over to Neil, who is with us, who will actually update us on the policy side and things that are happening. So certainly one of the questions that was entertained by Bill and maybe another individual on the committees, maybe he will comment on what's happening there to cover off that. And I'll hand it over to you, Neil, to give us an update.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Jill. So I'll just briefly go into some of the things that we worked on in the last few months as it relates to policy. So back in December of last year, we were engaged with the Winnipeg Metropolitan Region and their proposed Plan 2050. So this is a plan, it's a development plan that is intended to guide the development of the greater Winnipeg Metropolitan Region for decades to come. So we met with the team at the Winnipeg Metropolitan Region. We shared some concerns regarding this plan. We drafted a joint letter with 13 other commodity groups that signed on that sort of outlined all the concerns, as well as provided additional feedback to this plan. So in the next couple of weeks, we'll be meeting with the Department of Agriculture to hear from officials regarding any updates to this plan. So on April 2nd, the province will be unveiling their provincial budget. We provided a submission to the Department of Finance relating to our recommendations for the upcoming provincial budget. These recommendations included increased funding to healthcare, infrastructure, as well as justice. We also made recommendations as it relates to introducing provincial right to repair legislation, a young farmer tax rebate program, as well as the ongoing topic of the education property tax, as well as labor shortages. We also provided feedback to the federal government. They have been engaged with stakeholders as it relates to their goal or their plan of a 2035 greenhouse gas emissions reduction target. So we responded to their survey. They're engaged with everyone, all stakeholders, and they're just seeking opinions as it relates to potential targets for this plan. We also engaged in a survey from Statistics Canada relating to the 2026 Census of Agriculture engagement. We provided feedback. Some of the topics included content in the upcoming 2026 survey, as well as how data is provided and distributed on their website. Another topic that we've been engaged on involves disaster financial assistance. We've been engaged with the department as it relates to the $2 million cap in revenue for eligibility. We've also been engaged with the department regarding more clarity around eligibility requirements. We've sent a request for a meeting, and hopefully we'll be meeting with the department next month. Finally, we're also engaged with the building code topic. We've put in an application to sit on a number of committees. This is the organization of the Canadian Board for Harmonized Construction Codes. We hope to provide further input to the 2025 National Building Code for Canada. So that's it from the policy side. So I'll hand it back to you, Jill, and I believe Clean Farms will be presenting. Or if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions as it relates to those topics. Kevin, you have your hand up.
Well, not so much a question. My experience with the municipality, when you're working with a greater metropolitan development of Winnipeg, a lot of times it did affect our rural municipalities on their fire departments and their first responders and things like that. So I hope that you took the time to talk to a couple municipalities within the surrounding distance of Winnipeg.
We haven't engaged specifically with municipalities. We were engaged with AMM, the Association of Manitoba Municipalities, and we also engaged with other stakeholders. But yeah, we weren't directly engaged with, say, the reeves of these municipalities. But this is something we certainly can do in the future. This draft plan was version 2, so they're going to be introducing another version. And then at that time, we can certainly provide further feedback then.
Les, do you have a question? Your hand's up.
Yes, I do. So I just wondered how Neil had made out with, he had gone as far as he could on our District 2 resolutions on the tile drainage and the Class 3 wetland. I just wondered if he'd gone any further, and I'm curious why that wouldn't have come back to the Environment and Land Use Committee for discussion.
The topic of, say, water management is something we're ongoing. It's ongoing what we're engaged with. We've been meeting with the Environment Department in over the last 6 months a number of times. You know, another topic we're engaged in involves, you know, soil mapping. We've engaged with the U of M professors, learning more about soil mapping, how this is done. And this is certainly a topic, you know, we'll be providing to the Environment Committee when we meet next.
Thanks, Neil. Any other questions?
Just when would the Environment Committee meet? This was a concern, Jill, that there's been no committee meetings of any description take place. So how do you encourage member engagement if you don't have any committee meetings?
So I'll send out an invite. It'll likely happen after seating, Les.
We're trying to time the meetings when we actually have the information to provide to the committees, Les. So with the ongoing discussions that we've had, particularly with environment and climate, those discussions are ongoing. So we want to be able to provide some real concrete information and have some discussions at those committee levels. It's not that, and to Bill's point, it's not that we have stopped having, there's a reason we're trying to have the committee meetings so that we have information that we require feedback on, and we have the names of the individuals. So we will be, you know, starting those, having scheduled committee meetings after seating. Any other questions? David Rourke?
Yeah, I put a question in the chat, but have you had any interactions with the Scientific Based Target Initiative? It's a nonprofit, and the food companies' commitments for net zero. In fact, Nestle's has suggested that they're going to go beyond net zero and not do carbon trading and actually have real emissions right through to their scope 3 supply chains.
Neil, do you want to tackle that one?
No, we haven't had any engagement on that, David.
That should be part of the next committee, environment committee meetings, I think.
Okay, thank you for that, David.
you.
Kevin?
Again, more of a comment. It's more to Les's comments there. And if I read into it a little bit, I think what Les is asking is when we use Ducks Unlimited as our resource for expertise, whether we're talking the same language, because farmers look at getting rid of water and Ducks Unlimited looks at retaining water. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, we'll go on to we're going to make a little bit of a change here because our diploma students are going to be leaving and we're running a little bit behind time for Clean Farms presentation. So in order that we can have the discussion with the university students, we'll go to resolutions now. So I'm going to call upon Colin Penner, who will administer or look after the resolution debate. And we have Kevin Peters, who is part of the resolutions committee that will read out the resolution. I'll hand it over to you, Colin, and just for everyone's information, the actual procedures for resolutions have been included in all of your packages. And just to a note to make sure that just delegates will be responding to the voting poll at the end of the discussion. So I'll give it over to you, Colin.
Very good. Thank you, Jill. Kevin, would you like to read the first resolution that we have here?
Yeah. Be it resolved that KAP lobby the Government of Manitoba and the Government of Canada to provide funding for water hemp and Palmer amaranth that would advance testing on resistant tendencies of these noxious weeds, and be it further resolved that KAP lobby the Government of Manitoba to allocate resources to develop strategies against these noxious weeds, examples crop rotation, cover crops, reduced seed row width, and be it further resolved that KAP lobby the Government of Manitoba to fund research that would provide farmers with an effective herbicide to manage water hemp and Palmer amaranth.
Thank you, Kevin. Do we have a mover? I don't see any. Okay, David O'Rourke, District 1. Thank you for moving that. Seconder.
Thank you, David.
Christy Lynn. Thank you. That's seconder. Would the mover like to speak to the resolution?
I assume that a student would be talking about it, but certainly those weeds are our problem as well as kochia, and we need a strategy to make sure that we control those weeds into the future. It's a bit disturbing when you look at how long our agriculture has been herbicide based and how quickly we can lose that advantage.
Thank you, David.
So, thank you for the students for bringing this forward. It's important.
Would anyone else like to speak to the resolution? I'm assuming the students have something to say.
Yes, hello. My name is Nathan Cron. I'm from Rivers, Manitoba. And on behalf of the students, I'd like to thank you guys for involving us today. As you've seen from our whereases, and hopefully you've done a little bit of research on your own, polyamaranth and water hemp have moved into 19 municipalities in Manitoba as of this last year in 2023. Being a tier 1 noxious weed, this is a serious issue that farmers need to be aware of and have proper resources to deal with this weed. We believe that this issue needs to be tackled with greater knowledge of how to scout for and deal with water hemp and Palmer amaranth. This resolution outlines 3 different ways that KAP should lobby both the government of Canada and the government of Manitoba to improve funding of research, management strategies, and increase awareness. That is why we have submitted this resolution, and we'd like to see KAP be involved in these ways.
Yeah, Brendan Friesen here from District 3. We farm Stanley, Roland, Rhineland. So Rhineland has already seen water hemp and kind of all in the surrounding municipalities. We haven't seen it yet, but it's kind of a matter of time. So you have the numbers there for yield loss in Ontario, 19% in corn. Even if you shrink that number down a bit, if 160 bushel corn crop, if you're taking 20 bushel loss, that's $120 an acre at $6 a bushel. Edible beans harvesting issues similar to kochia if you let them establish early. Yeah, so just limiting the major profitable crops in District 3. Yeah, so we just want to resolve that more research and sharing of information to be aware so that farmers are scouting for this in their fields as well, not just looking and maybe saying that they're seeing more red root pigweed in their fields. Yeah, we just want to resolve that we have a proactive solution instead of reactive.
I'm Chase Peters from District 4, and I agree with everything that my group has presented. And being a young farmer in one of the affected areas, I would appreciate increased funding in the suggested way and hope to see this resolution passed.
Hello, I'm Cal Fortin. I'm from Souris. Kind of just speak to what David said there. In the Southwest region, we experience a lot of kochia, a lot of resistance to it. So water hemp is just a lot bigger plant. So if that comes into our area, it's just going to cause more harm to our yield and just a larger problem overall.
Is there any other further discussion on this resolution?
Colin, I have a comment.
Yeah, Chuck, I think that's you. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Colin. Just wondering if the students want to see just like information provided to farmers and things like that, or are they contemplating some kind of mandatory action be imposed upon farmers by either the province or municipalities? For example, in Alberta, their counties actually have legislation that mandates that farmers cannot grow canola, for example, on the same field. They have to have a rotation. I think it's a 3-year rotation in order to minimize the spread of clubroot. So are they looking at some way of mandating farmers actually take actions, or are they just wanting farmers to be provided the information and then they can decide whether or not they want to follow it?
I think the biggest thing we're looking at is just getting programs out to farmers to let them be able to scout for themselves and to identify it as fast as they can to limit the risk of spread. But yeah, you can definitely look into municipalities taking more action to working with the farmers to eradicate it and programs like that.
Bill, you've got your hand up.
Yes, thank you very much, Colin. And Bill Campbell, District 1. And I would support this resolution in so much as that the conversation of being proactive rather than reactive. The mover had mentioned, and one of the students had mentioned with regards to kochia. Now, I'm not familiar enough whether the characteristics are the same with the water hemp and Palmer amaranth, But there was an interesting presentation at Ag Days and an article in the Western Producer with regards to management of kochia, and that's the control of salinity. And with that, they have seen tremendous results with tile drainage. So I would encourage that some of that be, if we're going to deal with kochia, some of the consequences, or not consequences, but programs include soil health and tile drainage as a management tool to be able to help control some of these weeds that we have problems with. I will agree with the student from Souris in the Southwest, in the western part of the province, that kochia is going to be a significant problem weed, and it has been determined to be resistant to certain chemical families. So I think that that would be part of discussion that would be included to help be able to be proactive rather than reactive. Thank you.
Kevin, you've got your hand up.
I would also support this motion, and I would echo what Bill just said. I think that's very important as we're breaking more land to find out how to control these weeds in the land, because as we all know, a weed has more vigor to grow on poor land than some of our crops. I would also like to put in there that I hope the greenhouses and stuff are aware of some of these weeds we're dealing with, because if you look at something like purple loosestrife, that basically came out of greenhouses. And I thought even burning bush was another form of kochia that comes out of greenhouses. So I hope that some of these weeds are not being passed through the greenhouse system.
Colin, there was just one comment under the chat, just as for information. I don't know if you have that.
Yeah, is there already a product used inside the USA on the market?
That question, I guess, would be to the students if they in their research.
We have students, we're not aware of any. We know that water hemp is quite adaptable to creating resistance. In Manitoba, it's already resistant to groups 2, 9, and 14, and it's even more groups in Ontario and the US. So at this moment, I'm not aware of any products that could be used, but there may be.
Thank you.
I think to that note, Jake's hands up, sorry.
Jake.
I was just going to provide information. So we do pedigreed seed production, and we work with some companies out of the States too. And as far as I know, there is no product on the market for water hemp. That's one of the reasons why it is such an issue, is there is no chemical way to control it currently, just for information purposes.
Thanks. Any other further discussion? All right, seeing none, I'll call the question. Neil, I think you're in charge of this here, throwing the survey up. So the poll should pop up here. If you are a delegate, feel free to vote.
Voting for it.
All right, so it looks like it has passed with a 92% in favor. So thank you. I'll turn the meeting back over to you, Jill.
Thank you very much, Colin, and thank you for the discussion in the group, and thank you, U of M students. Hopefully you can stick around for the majority of the presentation. We have Serena Klippenstein from Clean Farms to give an update on the transition to retail for Clean Farms. And I see her on the screen. Welcome, Serena. And I'll hand the mic over to you, and I think you have the capabilities to go through your deck there. So thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Jill. If someone could just confirm that they can see my screen. I don't know. It says it's sharing, but.
Yes, you're good. We can see you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. Yeah. So good morning, everybody. Thank you for the invitation to speak with you today. Thank you for your time, to everybody who's included in the meeting, and to KAP for asking me. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Serena Klippenstein, and I'm the Manitoba Program Coordinator for Clean Farms. I've been working for Clean Farms for just over 2 years now, and I work with a great group of colleagues across Canada, as well as great people and great organizations within Manitoba to coordinate our day-to-day operations in the province. There we go. So I'll start today by providing a short introduction about who we are for those of you who aren't as familiar with Clean Farms, or as a refresher for those of you who are. I'll go through our retail collection programs in Manitoba, focusing, of course, mainly on the transition of collecting small containers at retail. I'll touch briefly on our municipal egg, film, and twine collection programs. And to end off, I'll provide some examples of what happens to all the plastics that we collect. And if there's anything I've missed throughout the presentation or anything that you're looking for more information on, there will be time at the end for questions. So Clean Farms, also known as KAP in our French-speaking regions, is a nonprofit, industry-led, industry-funded producer responsibility organization. We are operating collection and recycling programs for agriculture plastics and packaging across Canada. Today, we have over 160 members from across the agricultural supply chain, and this represents, the pesticide, fertilizer, seed, animal health medication, and egg plastics industries. We're governed by a board, which includes representatives from several of the life sciences companies, and they promote environmentally sound management of their products and packaging. As a producer responsibility organization, or a PRO, that's exactly what Clean Farms does on their behalf. We manage their products and packaging at the end of their life. So I won't spend too much time on this timeline. I just wanted to point out kind of a few key dates or a few key years. So our programs actually started back in 1989 under the umbrella of CropLife Canada. Our pesticide container program was the first collection program that began then. In 2000, or I guess throughout the years, but into 2009, they adopted more programs and had more partnerships with different industries, such as the obsolete pesticides and obsolete medications. So in 2009, the industry forged its first partnership outside of the crop protection industry and started working with the Canadian Animal Health Institute to deliver a stewardship program for animal pharmaceuticals in conjunction with the collection for obsolete pesticides. And then in 2010, Clean Farms was born. So they were created as a separate organization, and we've continued to work with different industries to add more programs to our repertoire throughout the years. So as recently as 2021 in Manitoba, that's when the most recent program to become permanent was the Grain Bag and Twine Collection Program in Manitoba. And here's just kind of a bit of how it works at a high level. So basically, as individuals go about their work, which could be a variety of operations from farmers to pesticide applicators, municipalities to industrial vegetation management services, they use a wide variety of largely plastic-based tools. This can be anything from small and large plastic containers carrying pesticides and fertilizers, or bags that carry seeds, pesticides, and inoculants to a variety of plastic wrap, so silage plastic, bale wrap, that sort of thing. Once these products are used, we ask that those individuals package it up and bring it to a Clean Farms collection site, as you can see in the middle there, and our teams look after transporting it and processing it to end markets. Or where recycling isn't possible, we will send it to secure disposal or energy from waste facilities. Currently in Manitoba, there are 6 collection programs, 5 of which are permanent, 1 is which is still in the pilot program stage. And for our container collections, I would say those are our most commonly used most commonly used programs. Our seed pesticide and inoculant bag collection and grain bag and twine collection are the most recent permanent programs. Those are still kind of, the uptake is still ongoing, so we're hoping to increase the collection of those materials in the future years. And for our pilot program, it's currently supported by the Dairy Farmers of Canada Here for Tomorrow initiative. And we're hoping to eventually make this a permanent program, but we are still in the pilot stages of those collection programs right now. So jumping into the transition to collecting jugs at retail. So as most of you are familiar with our small container collection program, this is just kind of a fun fact. So currently 149 million units have been collected since the inception of this program in 1989. It was one of the first extended producer responsibility programs in Canada and continues to this day. The 73% you see there is the 3-year average of collection rate across Canada. And currently retail collection is occurring in every province except for Alberta and Manitoba, which of course we are both transitioning, and I'll talk a bit more to that. So the background of jug collection, like I said, as you know, jugs have been collected at municipal depots and are now moving to ag dealer locations and being collected at retail. We're in the 3rd year of a 3-year transition. This is the final year, and we'll be wrapping up at the end of this year into next year, kind of finalizing and cleaning out municipal sites. Currently, the collection logistics are blended. We're both collecting from municipal sites as well as retails until the end of this year. And by this time next year, all municipal jug depots will be closed to collection of jugs. And there are some exceptions, as I'll note, which sites are continuing to collection even after the transition occurs. And this is basically due to limited or no retails in those regions. So the main reason for this transition occurring, it actually all began in Alberta. Since about 2013, the Alberta Agricultural Services Board have introduced resolutions requesting a transition to retail collection. My apologies. And in 2021, a successful resolution passed to formally request the Ministry of Environment and Protected Areas to intervene and work with Clean Farms in seizing collection at municipal locations and moving collections to retail. Manitoba, basically, the decision was made that with Alberta now transitioning over to collection at retail, that Manitoba would follow suit. And the decision was made from Canada's crop input manufacturers and distributors that we as well would transition to retail collection. So in both cases, in both Alberta and Manitoba, it had become costly to maintain aging municipal sites, and there had been persistent issues with illegal dumping at unsupervised municipal sites. And we had noticed in other provinces where collection was done at retail that these two issues just weren't the case. So retail was the natural next step. Most of you are probably familiar with how jugs are collected at municipal collection sites. So containers are returned loose in kind of a large compound, often with a fence around it. These containers are picked up by Clean Farms, maybe once or twice per year, but sometimes once every 2 years if a site is smaller or we're not able to get to them right away. So with retail collection, the system is a lot different. The containers have to be returned bagged and they're picked up on request. So once a retail site has 10 bags on site, they can put in an online request to have these bags picked up. So there are quite a few different benefits of retail collection versus municipal collection. So there are higher collection rates, as we've noticed in the provinces who have already had retail collection. Saskatchewan, for example, has had retail collection for over 20 years now. They did this transition 20 years ago. We tried to fit it into 1 year. It didn't work so well. So basically, that's why we're having the 3-year transition now in Alberta and Manitoba. But we have noticed that over time in Saskatchewan, this has really helped with accessibility and convenience for growers. There are higher rinse rates in Saskatchewan and the other provinces where the jugs are brought back to retail. This means it's healthier for the sites themselves because those jugs are bagged. There's less chance of contamination because that bag acts as a secondary containment. The bags are also picked up more frequently than they would be at municipal sites, and sometimes they're even stored inside. Another part of it that is beneficial is that the retail-based collections ensure the programs remain industry-led and lowers cost to users by avoiding regulatory burden. And part of that is because of the harmonization. So basically having the same type of collection across all of Canada keeps the cost down and makes it the cost to the industry reduced overall. And the system is just more efficient that way. So in terms of how it works at the actual retail sites, users or farmers will receive collection bags from their retailer at the time of sale. They'll triple or pressure rinse. This is a very important step. And they'll also remove the paper booklets off of the jugs. So not the sticker that's really stuck onto the jug, but just the thick paper booklets, because it can get jammed up when the jugs are being shred. And then those will all be placed into a collection bag. They'll be sealed with a zip tie. And then that will be brought back to their retail site. So once the retail site has 10 bags of containers on site, they can put in a request, and within 10 days, someone, a Clean Farms contractor, will be there to pick them up. This all occurs during our collection season. So from April 1st to October 31st are our pickup windows, and when our contractors go out. And then there are also options. So aside from the retail option, there are also large volume users. So if you're a custom applicator or an aerial spraying company who isn't also a retail, or how to write colonies, for example, are large users of volumes of jugs. So we can pick up right on farm or right on site. And then also direct distribution users, then we can pick up, if they don't have kind of a brick and mortar store or retail that they've bought from, we're able to pick up on farm. And part of that is just, there are minimums with the volumes that we can pick up, but we can work together to, with farmers in areas. So if there's 2 or 3 farms, if they don't each individually meet the 30 bag minimum, then if maybe there's 3 or 4 of them that they each have 5 or 10 bags of jugs, then we can kind of arrange a pickup for that region. And in terms of health and safety, as I mentioned, rinsing is the #1 priority, and the preventative measure that farmers can take to make sure that these jugs are non-hazardous recyclables when they're coming back to their retail site. So by triple pressure rinsing or chem handling rinsing, this removes 99.9% of residues. We do studies, we send off our shredded material to the University of Guelph to test it for residues, and this has been found from the rinsed material. So it's a very important step. When it comes to seed treatment containers, we do understand that it's hard to rinse them completely. So we do ask that if they can't be rinsed fully, then the cap remains on, and that those seed treatment containers are bagged separately. So to the point of bagging, all jugs must be bagged, and seed treatment containers are asked to be bagged separately because that the dye from the seed treatment can contaminate the rest of the shred. So if they're kept separate, that way at least it can't contaminate an entire compactor truck full of clean shred, essentially. And just a couple other things to note. So customers are asked to properly rinse and bag before arriving at the retail. The retails are not expected to have rinsing capabilities on site and are not asked to deal with rinse aid of any sort. So that needs to be done before it is returned to retail. And unwanted pesticides are only accepted at specified retails during collection events. So I'll get into those events a bit more in a bit more detail later on in the presentation, but those should not be dropped off at retail sites in non-collection years. So these are just a few stats up to date. So to update you on how things are going on the transition to retail. The percent of ag retailers that are on board is actually 56%. So we were aiming for about 50% at the end of the second year of the transition. So things are definitely shaping up to be online with our expectations, which is great. Most of the municipalities, so over 100, are already closed. 13 more of those will be closed by the end of 2024 or January 1st, 2025. And currently 3 municipalities are going to be open indefinitely to jug collection. So that number may increase by the end of the year if we're finding there's more regions where there aren't enough retails who are accepting, and we'll work together with individual regions and municipalities to decide if that's what's needed in their region. And as I mentioned before, applicators, large farms, and other large volume users are now receiving free on-site pickup. So that's another option as well if you're in an area where your retails aren't quite accepting yet. And at the bottom of the screen, I've just included a bit of information. So on our website, these are the tabs you can go into to find out a bit more about the transition to retail. And this is actually from a PDF that you can get off of that part of the website. So these are showing the 3 sites that are the 3 municipalities that are open indefinitely, and then the 13 that will be closing at the end of this year to jug collection. And that can be found, like I said, the PDF can be found on our site if you're looking for that information as well. And just to touch on a few of our other retail collection programs. So not only the small containers up to 23 liters, but also totes and drums, unwanted pesticide and livestock medication collection, as well as seed pesticide and inoculant bags can all be taken back to retail. So in terms of the totes and drums, here's another fun fact, I guess. 392,000 units have been, so units as in totes and drums have been collected since inception of the program in 2015. This has always been at retail for collection, and 57% is the 3-year average, the rate of collection across Canada in the 3 most recent years. So in terms of how to prepare these containers properly, these containers should be completely emptied and drained, rinsed when at all possible to make sure that all of the product is rinsed out. And if there happens to be anything at the bottom, it's just rinse-ate, not pure product. And then the totes and drums can be brought back to returned to the point of sale. So this is kind of why we're, another reason why we're moving this way with the smaller containers is that this is the system that has been in place with totes and drums since 2015, and it's been working well for them. So we're hoping that the same case will be with the jugs. And again, same as the jugs, large volume and direct distribution customers may be eligible for on-site pickup. So the minimums for the totes and drums, I believe for drums, it's 200 for site pickup, or 26 1,000 liter totes, or a combination of the 2, or smaller sizes in between. So if you do have some on site and you are interested, please reach out. My contact information will be in the last slide, and we can see if you meet the minimum, or if you and your neighbor meet the minimum, we can arrange a pickup. The unwanted products, also the unwanted pesticide and livestock and equine medication pickup, it occurs every 3 years in Manitoba. So it's a one day blitz style collection event, basically delivered at no cost to users. Everyone brings in their products in this one day. So the information will go out as to which sites are taking part. That will go out in about June or July in the year that it will be, the collection will be. And in Manitoba, this is a non-collection year. So our next collection year is actually next fall. So fall 2025, and then fall 2028 will be the next collection year. And when this material is collected, it's sent for safe disposal by a high temperature incineration. And if you're wondering whether the product you have on your farm can be brought back or not, basically, as long as it has a PCP number on the label, then it's accepted. If it is in a container that's leaking or old or cracked, just make sure it's in a sealed container. So like a 15-liter drum or whatever you have kind of on hand to make sure that that product isn't leaking out, so it can be stored safely on your farm until the collection comes around in Manitoba. And seed pesticide and inoculant bag collection is fairly new in Manitoba, but the pilot project has been ongoing for the last few years. It's just only become a permanent program in the last year or so. And this includes small paper bags with plastic liners, as well as the large 1,000-liter tote bags, so polywoven totes or any size in between those. Those are all accepted as a part of our programs. The smaller seed bags are best bagged in our collection bags, and then the larger totes, as you can see in the middle, are best bundled in packages of 5 or 6. And then eventually they will be baled and shipped off to waste for energy facilities, because they can't, the paper bags can't be recycled because of the plastic liner. The poly totes, however, will go for recycling. So luckily we can still recycle those. And then just touching on a few of our other programs that may be of interest to you. If you're someone who deals with grain bags, or if you have cattle of any sort, then twine, bale wrap, silage plastic, these may all be products that you have on your farm as well. So these are all collected as a part of Clean Farms programs at the municipal sites. Currently, we have 38 collection sites. Most of those, 36 of those, collect both grain bags and twine on site. Some of them only collect twine. We are looking to expand the number of sites, especially as you can see on the west side of the province, kind of north of Verdun, west of Minnedosa area there are some gaps. Also in southern Manitoba, we'd like to fill in more of those gaps just to make sure that there's more accessibility to those drop-offs off sites for farmers. So if you are in those areas, or if someone in your municipality that you know of, talk to them, talk to us, let us know that there is a need, and we would like to have more sites on board if we can. I should also mention there are site incentives now for the collection of grain bags and twine at municipal sites. Then for each municipal site that collects a metric ton of grain bags or twine, they will get $55. So it doesn't seem like a large amount of money, but that adds up once you have a few metric tons over a few years, kind of thing. So that's just to help with maintaining the site or having extra staffing or anything that you may need related to those programs. And just a few quick preparation steps of how these materials need to be prepared. So basically shaking out the material, making sure, I guess with grain bags, it's harder to shake it out, but even cutting out large areas that are extra soiled, if there's spoilage kind of stuck onto it or frozen on, that sort of thing, cutting off those areas before it's rolled, ensuring that most of it is clean. It doesn't have to be pristine. It doesn't have to be power washed by any means or swept or anything, but basically just making sure that those large chunks of material, organic material, soil and ice, anything that could damage the recycler's shredding system, then that's removed from the product before it's rolled up. And with grain bags, because they are such a large piece of plastic, then they must be mechanically rolled. So they're nice and tight, have lots of twine around them to ensure that they're kept together in one piece as they're transported along the way. And then, of course, they can be returned to municipal collection sites. So similar story with twine, but instead of rolling, of course, once you've removed dirty material or organic material, ice and snow and all that, usually just running a gloved hand through the twine will do the trick with it. Then they can be all tossed in a bag and closed up with another piece of twine. The biggest contamination that we see with twine bags is actually other plastic materials that we collect. So mixing twine, bale wrap, silage, plastic, that sort of thing. So that would be the biggest takeaway that I would say for preparing twine, is make sure that the only twine is in the bag, and only bale wrap is in another bag, and only silage plastic is in a different bag. So keeping those plastics all separate, because they do go to different recyclers and different end markets. So they do need to be kept separate. And twine bags can be found at municipal sites. They're provided by the municipal sites. And if you find that you have a ton of twine that you're going through and maybe use 30 to 40 bags in a year, then please reach out to us and I can send you a roll directly to your farm if that's what you need. And of course, once they're all sealed up and ready to go, they can be returned to municipal sites. I should mention that for twine and grain bags, if you do have a large quantity that you collect on your farm each year, we can also do on-farm pickups for twine and grain bags, and silage plastic and bale wrap are included as a part of that too. So that's another option for larger scale farms. And as I mentioned, bale wrap and silage plastic are currently in the pilot program phase, and we're working together in a partnership with Dairy Farmers of Canada to make sure that we can collect those and continue to collect them right now while they aren't quite yet a permanent program. And in terms of preparation, again, similar steps, just shaking them out, making sure those excessively dirty parts of them are cut off or taken off. And before that material is either put into a bag in the case of bale wrap or bundled in the case of silage plastic. It can also be compacted or baled. So as you can see on the far right of the screen, this is one of the compactors that has been provided by the partnership between Clean Farms and Dairy Farmers of Canada to, I believe it's 10 different dairy farmer sites in Manitoba right now. And we do have one at Steinbach landfill, so one at a public site. We're looking at bringing in a few more compactors in Manitoba, and we're hoping to increase that number in the coming years as well. So most importantly, once you've used this material, yes, it needs to be bagged, bundled, or baled, some way of getting it into a more compact package to move it to your municipal site. But as I mentioned, it can also be picked up on farm if you do have a large quantity. Pardon me. And lastly, this is a question we actually get a lot at conferences and meetings and trade shows. Is this material really recycled? So I like to have this in my presentations just to show that, yes, in fact, our material is recycled. So this is just one example. Probably the most common product that that people ask about is the jugs, totes, and drums. So once those are shredded, cleaned, washed, and then pelletized, and those pellets get sent to manufacturers. So I think it's about 95% of our container programs are shredded and pelletized to be made into drainage tile, so back into an agriculture use. Some of them are also used for composite lumber, and silage plastic is another one that may be made into composite lumber. So we actually work with a manufacturing company in Quebec to make drainage tile. There's a composite lumber manufacturing company in Alberta that we work with to make that. And so we try to keep things in, or we send the pellets and the shred to places in North America, manufacturers in North America. So none of those products are sent overseas. And this is just kind of a snapshot of one of our handouts of what becomes what. So what all the different products, so not just containers, but twine, for example, gets made into plant pots and car parts and roofing materials and all that. So there's all sorts of different materials that our materials get made into after their end of life. They're renewed and recycled into a new life, essentially. So hopefully I've left enough time for questions if there are any. This is my contact information. Like I said, I am based out of Manitoba. So if you have any Manitoba related questions, please feel free to shoot them that way. Yeah. I don't know if there are any right now, but yeah.
Great. Thank you very much, Serena, for the information and for the important, I guess, updates on the transition to collection at a retail site that's occurring right now. Do we have any questions from anyone attending? Shannon Piziak.
Thanks. I have a couple of questions, and I think, and I missed it. I think you said in one of your earlier slides, the size of jugs that can be included, up to what size?
Up to 23 liters.
And I just have a couple.
For sure.
The lids, my understanding is
Yes.
the lids have to be off them. Is that correct?
So we do still ask for lids to be taken off, but it's less of an issue now. Basically, it was a processing issue in the past where the lids would have a hard time because they're a different type of plastic. They would be shredded and then they would end up in the shred, and so it was contaminating the HDPE that the jugs are made of with the plastic from the lids. That is no longer the case. They found that it was a very minimal percentage of this different type of plastic that was found in the shred. So lids can be kept on. They're not as much of an issue. I would say focus on paper booklets because that will still get caught up when they're being shred at the recyclers. So Yes, I would say don't worry as much about lids. We still put it on our messaging because ideally we would like to have less contamination from the lids and any other pieces of material that may be in there. But I would say that's less of an issue than the booklet.
Okay.
Okay, so if the lids are being removed, then they should not be included in the bag. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, they can be, put in landfill essentially.
So, and thank you for clarifying about what needs to be removed, because my understanding was that the labels need to be removed, and to try and remove the labels, those sticky labels is almost impossible. So thank you.
Yes, exactly. And that's why we do clarify, because we've had that comment before, like, how do you expect us to peel off every single sticker? And that's not at all what so it's just the paper booklet labels that we're talking about.
And the RM site incentives, you indicated that grain bags and twine can be collected, but not mesh or silage wrap.
Correct. So I didn't get into the net wrap side of things, but unfortunately we cannot collect net wrap at this time. So if you do net wrap and then bale wrap your bales, so the netting cannot be collected, but the basically shrink wrap that we call bale wrap, but you may have a different name for, or there may be a few different names for the shrink wrap stuff can be collected. It's just the netting that cannot be.
Okay, thank you. I call it mesh, but thank you.
Yeah, or mesh, yeah.
You indicated.
Thanks, Shannon. Did you have another question, Shannon?
I did.
Okay, go ahead.
I will send a couple of miscellaneous ones to you. The one that I wanted to raise, though, is the retails. Some retails have indicated in my discussion in terms of returning jugs that their insurance brokers are very reluctant to provide insurance to their sites for collecting these, for collecting back the jugs. And I just wonder if there's been any discussion about that. And
absolutely. Yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Nope, that's it for me.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was just going to say we have actually been in touch with not only insurance brokers who work together with some of the retails in Manitoba and Saskatchewan, but also we work together with the AWSA warehousing, so for their regulations. And after speaking with both AWSA as well as the insurance brokers in the individual situations that we've had those discussions, it has become, it hasn't been an issue. It's been resolved basically with the requirements that the rinsing requirement, that's the biggest. So as long as those materials are being properly prepared and brought back to site, it is a non-issue because it's a non-hazardous recyclable. In the cases where there are jugs or materials brought back that are improperly rinsed or improperly prepared, that's where we are hoping to get there basically as soon as possible. So we want those sites to let us know so that we can deal with that on an individual basis if something is being backed that isn't properly rinsed. So I would say the biggest thing is for retails to be able to have that conversation with their with their customers when if their customers are bringing back unrinsed containers, just to reiterate the importance of why they need to be rinsed before they're brought back. And if there is something that's dropped off without their knowledge, if for some reason they're busy in the office and someone kind of sneaks in the back and brings in unrinsed containers for some reason, to make sure that they let us know right away, and we'll come pick up those jugs right away and deal with them so that they don't have to deal with them on their side of things.
Great. Thank you very much, Serena.
Thank you.
So I see some other hands up. I have Bill and then David Rourke and then Les Ferris. And then I have two other, unless this is the same question, David, I have a couple questions that are in the chat as well, but I'll go to Bill Campbell first. We've got about 5:10. I'm just cognizant of your time, Serena. I know we're over for yourself, but just let me know how much time you have. But Bill Campbell first.
Good. Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, thank you. Bill Campbell, District 1. You had mentioned that you have pickup every 3 years for unused and expired medications. Is that compliant with Verified B Plus to wait that long before you remove those expired medications from your property? Second question is there a financial incentive for infrastructure and human resources for these retailers because conversation with my retailer said, I don't want them because I can't afford another person or allocate a person, and where are we going to put them? The third question is with regards to the plastic twine. I see that there are no new sites with regards to collection of them. And if it's not convenient, I'm paying a surcharge on my twine that I purchase. I take it to the landfill and it gets burnt. Why don't I just burn it at home? And then why am I paying a surcharge for plastic twine if there are not more locations of convenience to utilize recycling of these products? Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. That's more than one question, Bill, but okay, I'll throw that off to you, Serena, to deal. Thanks.
I'll try to remember them all. You may need to remind me as I go. So in terms of the Beef Plus, that's a great point. I was unaware of that, so I can definitely look into that and see if there's something we can do in the meantime. The main reason why we only have it once every 3 years versus once every year is just the sheer number of sites that do collect for these programs all across Canada, and the cost of it has really increased in the last few years. We no longer have an incinerator in Canada that we can bring these products to safely dispose of them, so we have to take them down to the United States. So there has been an extra cost even in the last few years since I've started with Clean Farms. And so to be able to run these programs every year just wouldn't be possible for Clean Farms as a nonprofit. So we found that the 3 years has been enough to collect what's needed in every region. But if there are certain regulations, then maybe that's something, or it is something definitely we can look into to see if there are alternative means in the in-between years of where those can be safely stored. And the second question in terms of site incentive, we are looking into basically a type of site incentive for retail sites in Manitoba. We kind of waited to hear back from retails to see what people are looking for without knowing what's required and what each site would need. We didn't have anything to kind of base off of, but a fund has been put into place. We do have a fund that we're going to be basically putting it together, kind of a grant system application. So a retail site would put in kind of a grant application of what they're looking for on their site to be able to properly prepare it to take jugs in. And then we're still working out the details of how it will be distributed, but that money will then kind of be granted to the applications who are kind of in the most need. So for example, if a site has a well or something nearby or on site, then obviously they're a high priority to make sure that we have some sort of a container that keeps the jugs off of the ground, say in a sea can container or something like that. So they can apply up to a certain amount and have that money or those funds, if they're willing to match that fund, to be able to use that for their site to prepare for jug collection. And then sorry, you'll have to remind me of the third question.
The increased number of sites for silage wrap and bale twine collection, because I'm not going to drive an hour to dispose of my twine.
Right. And that's we are working on increasing those number of sites. So if you can reach out to me directly and let me know what area you're in, then we don't know that there's a need unless people contact us, or unless a municipality is contacted by their ratepayers. So that's why I'm kind of putting the call out to say we know that there are some areas that are lacking in collection sites for twine and grain bags and silage plastic and all that right now. So if you know of an area or you're in an area, please reach out to me. And a lot of the municipal sites that I've reached out to and let them know that there is a need in their area, they've had no problem starting to collect those products, and probably the twine and grain bags even more so than they would be willing to collect jugs or something like that. So yes, so just let me know and I can reach out for sure.
Great. Thanks, Serena, and thanks, Bill, for the questions. Les Ferris, please.
Hi, I would like your comment on this. I was hoping when you said truly recycling that those jugs would go back and be made into chemical jugs again, but obviously they're not. But I just wondered if you could comment on that. Why,
For sure,
they-
yeah. Sorry, yeah. I was just gonna say, yeah, so that's the idea in the future. So we are moving towards bottle to bottle recycling, I'll call it. And so eventually those bottles will be made into new chem jug bottles or pesticide and fertilizer container bottles. We have been looking actually into it for a while, I guess, and they do that in some other countries. So I believe Brazil does it, and in Europe they do it. So our our management has been looking into that for years and seeing how we can make it happen. And we are getting closer to that happening in Canada and in North America. One of the complications with it is there's many layers of the jug, and if there are shredded jugs from other companies, so say you have a shredded BASF jug and a shredded beer jug, and they're all in the mix because you can't separate those jugs before they're shredded and sent pelletized and all that. So they don't want their formulations potentially being on that shred, touching other formulations. So we do testing to make sure that the shred, like I mentioned, it gets sent off to the University of Guelph, and 99.9% of residue is gone, and it's cleaned as long as those are rinsed. So that's not an issue. But when it comes down to that formulation sitting in a jug for many, many years potentially, then they just have to go through all the proper testing to make sure that there's no issues at all, and there's no chance of those two formulations either being contaminated or mixing or anything. So it has been a process, but we are getting closer to seeing that in Canada. So thank you for bringing that up.
Great question, Les. And David, question you have. Oh, you'll have to unmute.
Yeah, again, I had put it in the chat, but just, are you getting any value out of the, for instance, the tile manufacturer for the recycled material?
Value in terms of,
are they
like,
paying us? You?
Yeah. So basically that's partially how it works. So the shred goes to recyclers, and then the recyclers sell the pelletized product basically at the end. And I'm not quite sure how it works because I'm more of the operations side, but my understanding is that basically the recycler and Clean Farms have a deal worked out that part of that money is coming back to kind of continue to pay for those programs and that processing.
And I guess lastly, we'll round it out with the last question. You briefly spoke on it, and that's in regards to the nail bale wrap netting, and your thoughts on the future of maybe having that as a recyclable item. Right now, I guess the only option would be just to, for it to be used as a burn, for consumption somewhere for heat, or energy, but has there any movement on that?
Right. So yeah, not quick movement, I'll say. Everything's a process. My understanding is even in Europe, they're having a hard time figuring it out. I think there's potentially maybe one country or one organization who has found a way or is testing a way to recycle net wrap. There are a few issues with it. So number one, it's made of a lot of different types of plastic. So it's hard to recycle it or separate it out. It may have to be chemically recycled to separate that into different plastics to be able to pelletize it and sell it into kind of an end market. And markets are hard to find for that plastic at this point. And then in terms of processing, kind of taking a step back, then it is very, there's a lot more organic material with mesh and netting than there is, say, with bale wrap, for example. And so with all of that organic material, they're not getting a lot of, if you process it or you chop it up, that sort of thing, you're getting a lot more hay than you are plastic. So it just doesn't work out as easily at this point. So they have to find a way to properly separate the organic material from the plastic before they can even process it. To chop it up, it's a lot more difficult than twine. Twine chops up by a guillotine into kind of 1-inch pieces and then can be put through a float tank and cleaned, that sort of thing. But when you try to chop the net wrap, because of the stretch sketchiness, that's the property that we all love on bales, then it makes it also on the opposite end of things very hard to chop. It just kind of stretches as the guillotine tries to go through it. So there are a lot of different parts of recycling the net wrap and processing it that are an issue right now. They are working on it, but we're just I couldn't even tell you when we'd be there in Canada in terms of recycling it. So the closest would be in Quebec, because they have to have programs for all of their plastics at this point. It is a regulation. Then they do send it for waste to energy. That could potentially be a way to deal with it. But in terms of in Manitoba or in other provinces, we need funding to pay for that waste to energy. So without the funding from the manufacturers of the net wrap at this point, then we don't have the funds to be able to deal with it ourselves.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you, Mark, for that comment in our question in the chat on the bale wrap. Thanks, Mark, for that. And yeah, so I guess we'll move on to, I know we want to get onto some of the questions in other business. So thank you for joining us, Serena. And for sure, if there's any question that pops up, her information was on the screen, or certainly you can contact
just
the
took
office.
it down.
Oh, it's okay. We can contact, get you to Serena's contact through the office if you have a question later on, something pops in your mind. But certainly having something that is consistent across Canada would be great. And it's nice to hear that move to retail was working well in Saskatchewan. So hopefully and so far there's been great buy-in in Manitoba and Alberta. So thank you again, Serena. So with that, we will move to cross-provincial updates. And then we will have some time at the end of the meeting to highlight maybe some of the questions that were identified at the beginning of the meeting. We can tackle some of those at the end of the day. I certainly want to get to those, but very conscious of everyone's rest of their day plans. So across the province, we'll start with the Commodity Association. So is there any report or update from Dairy Farmers of Manitoba? You can just unmute yourself, Christy Lane, if you'd like.
Yeah, not really at this point. You know, we're still working on our net zero to 2050 campaign with Dairy Farmers of Canada. So we're still working on that. Right now in Manitoba, we are working on coordinating with the other Western provinces to kind of work together in terms of the things that we do in common, such as transportation and those types of things. So that's mostly what we are focused on these days.
Great. Thank you very much, Christy Lane. Keystone Potato Producers, is someone on the line from KPPA? Just put up your hand if you are. I'm looking. Or put your comment in the chat if I miss you. We'll go on to Love Day Mushrooms. I don't see any hand there. Manitoba Beekeepers Association, was there someone on the call from Manitoba Beekeepers?
Yeah, I might as well talk, seeing as you have a nice little picture there of some bees.
Oh, great. We do. Go ahead.
There's really not much to update right now. I could just say that probably in the next week, you're going to see any of you farmers that have beekeepers on your land, you will see us starting to move our bees out in the next week as temperatures are warming up.
Great. Thank you very much, Mike. Manitoba Bison. And if I miss your hand, just jot something down in the chat. If you're able to talk later, I'll just keep going. Manitoba Canola Growers. Warren, did you want to, was there an update from canola growers?
Yeah, there is, but I couldn't hit my mute button.
Oh, it's okay. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, we've been doing a bit of lot of it is just what we do every year. But the big thing for us this year is the continuation of our Hello Canola program, which we have 3 provinces participating in that. And that had a kickoff on October 25th. And we're starting to see some results back. So that's kind of an exciting thing. And then we have 4 new directors from our annual meeting. So that's was a big change for us. It's half our board is brand spanking new. So some good things going on there. And then we are continuing on with working with the canola variety trials, trying to get them established again, so that we have some independent information for that. So
Great.
other than that, yeah.
Thanks, Lauren. Manitoba chicken producers. Marg just put something in the comments. She's unable to unmute right now. Just a reminder that the pork AGM is coming up on April the 11th. And expansion of Winkler meats has been seen as positive. And so far, no PED virus known for the past year. So that's from Manitoba Pork. We'll go, Manitoba Crop Alliance provided an update in your packages that was sent out on the Dropbox, if you want to refer to that. Manitoba Egg Farmers. Don't have anybody there. Manitoba Forage Seed Association, or the Seed Association first. And then we will go on to Forage and Grasslands Association. Is there someone on the call that would like to update, any updates from there?
Hi, Jill, it's Duncan.
Hi, go ahead, Duncan.
Okay, hi. Yeah, I'll just be very quick. We're busy, lots is going on. We're continuing to promote our MFGA quantity model into key audiences. Any of the groups on here that are more interested in learning more, we'd be happy to share a presentation with them. Our corporate campaign is underway. We have saved the dates for our 7th annual Regenerative Ag Conference, November 12th and 13th in Brandon. We'll be sending registration soon. Recently, we had a new chair appointed. Mike Duguid from Manitoba Beef Producers is our new chair. Vice chair would be Zach Casilny from Strathclair. And of course, with great service and recognition of his great work, Lawrence Knockhart moves to past chair at MFGA. So we have KAP slated for our August meeting for Jill and hopefully Brenna to attend. And that's what we're doing.
Great, thanks, Duncan. And I did not, I won't be remiss. Was there any highlights other than that was in the update that Pam provided us for Crop Alliance? Go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Lee Smith, Oak Lake, Manitoba. I guess I'd like to go over some of these points that Pam has sent in. And so our advance payment and cash advance, I guess now has been set at $250,000 for the 2024 program year. And this portion of the money will be paid for by the government for the producers. The interest. MCA has a competitive interest rate bearing portion on the advance at prime minus 0.5% and would be considered one of the best in the province. Once the application is completed and received by staff, the dollars can be advanced in as little as 3 days. And to start this application process is starting for April 2nd, 2024. And you can find out more information on our website at KAP Alliance, Advance Payments Program Cash Advance, or call the office at 204-745-6661, or talk to Tammy or Ray. I've got a list here, and I'm going to go through all of them if I have time. The Research on the Farm program is calling for participants for 2024 growing season. on research benefiting farmers by demonstrating how products and practices behave on their own farms, on their own land, and with their own machinery. And I guess you can go to the website as well and learn more about the research and research on the farm program. MCA letter of intent has closed. MCA called for LOIs for funding for special crops research projects for sunflowers, flax, corn, and winter wheat. Whole farm research programs are increasing research capacity funding. Our staff will, with guidance from the crop committees and whole farm research committee, will be busy reviewing the 23 LOI received to determine which ones will take to the next step. Projects from the intake are slated to begin in 2025. Made in Manitoba sunflower breeding program news. MCA has invited tenders for non-exclusive license to producers in Canada, confection sunflower hybrids, EX 3592 and 39, and EX 359306, produced from the only farm-funded hybrid confection sunflower breeding program in Canada. This is an exciting step forward for Manitoba sunflower growers. Our biannual newsletter, the Fence Post, will be mailed out on May 6th. High school bursaries. MCA is offering 6 $1,000 bursaries to assist in the financial needs of students who are graduating from high school in the 23-24 school year and are planning on continuing their education in Canada, colleges or universities in the field that will benefit the agricultural sector. Impact, our crop type on Manitoba economy. On behalf of the MCA, Global Data undertook a study to assess the impact of Manitoba grown wheat, excluding durum, barley, grain corn, sunflowers, and flax on the Manitoba economy. Several of these crops are also the foundation for important food industries, both within the province and beyond. The data is now available in an interactive and accessible format on our website as well. Nominations and elections for delegates opens July 1st. MCA will be accepting nominations from farmers members to serve as delegates on 4 crop committees. There will be 4 delegates positions open on each of the corn committee, flax committee, sunflower committee. With the wheat and barley committee, there will be 5 delegate positions open. Additional information about the nomination process will be available at the website prior to July 1st. If anybody is interested in becoming involved with the MCA as a delegate, please reach out to hello@manitobacropalliance.ca. So, and you can also subscribe to our monthly Heads Up newsletter. And you can follow us on X and Instagram at Manitoba_Crop Alliance. So I'd like to thank you for the time. And if there are any questions, I don't know if I can answer them very well, but I could direct you towards the office and all the good people there.
Thank you very much, Lee. And like I mentioned before, it's if you want some more detail on that report, it's on the Dropbox that you would have all received as well. But thanks, Lee. We'll go to Manitoba Oak Growers Association. And Pulse Growers Association.
Thanks, Jill. Daryl Dimitrick here from Pulse and Soybean. Like other groups, we're just in our routine business of preparing for the field season. We run a very extensive on-farm research program, about 70 sites every year out of this office in Carman. So pretty much routine business. But there's 3 things I'll bring to the attention of Keystone Ag producers that I'd be interested in following up. with staff at a later date. Number one is it's clear that the provincial delivery system for research programming is experiencing significant difficulty. We think it's due to a lack of staff and a turnover of staff, and it's resulting in substantially increased administrative costs for the producer groups. And so that's something I wouldn't mind following up with KAP on. Secondly, in the area of trade, and we work extensively with our national groups and exporters in the area of international trade. And it's always been apparent, but it's really coming to a head recently, that Manitoba, compared to other provinces, puts relatively little effort into not just promoting, but to servicing our trade relations with buyers around the world. And certainly in the Pulse area, that's a key thing. And the recent establishment of the Asia Pacific Trade Office is a very positive step on the part of the federal government. But we can see that provinces like Saskatchewan and Alberta, with their more extensive international trade promotion network, are clearly going to take advantage of that. And Manitoba is really not a player. So that's a concern to us and something we also should follow up on. And the third thing is kind of growing from the water hemp discussion earlier this morning. Another area of pests that's rapidly evolving here in Manitoba and are bacterial and fungal root rots of crops. And we've recently entered into a prairie-wide collaborative effort with other pulse and soybean groups to try and tackle this. And what it requires is extensive and ongoing surveillance. Just like the water hemp issue, you've got to be watching, and you've got to be consistently watching and not take your eye off it. And what I want to indicate is that we pay a fair bit of money to Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada in particular, but also sometimes the universities, to mount extensive surveillance efforts to keep track of root rot diseases as they evolve. We've been fortunate in a way in the recent dry period, is that holds back these root rot diseases from infecting roots. But we get into a wet cycle like we had in the 90s, and that's going to unleash some pretty significant disease pressure. And we rely on government researchers and experts in pathology to monitor these things so we can keep ahead of them. And we're concerned that it costs a fair bit of money for us to do that. And we have concerns, for example, if the provincial plant pathologist were to retire, his key coordinating role would go away, and that would add even additional costs onto producer groups to take up that work. We know the provincial soil fertility specialist position has been vacant for a year. And so anytime that we even have a hint of another retirement, it perks our ears up, and specifically if it has an effect on our ability to monitor root rot. And so again, I'd be interested in picking up a conversation with KAP staff at some point on those kinds of things. And with that, Jill, that will close out my report. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Daryl, for your comments. We'll go on to, I'll maybe comment a little, we can touch base on those things through the office as far as work that we're doing specifically on the trade front. I actively involved with the Premier's Business and Job Council on that front, so we can certainly coordinate some information there to yourself, Daryl, on what we're doing at KAP on those fronts. Manitoba seed growers. We'll go to the Sheep Association. Turkey producers. Prairie fruit growers. Okay, keeping in mind our time, we're a little bit over, and I know you got the agenda this morning and have set the time accordingly, but we will go on to our districts. So comments from District 1.
I guess I can lead that conversation. I guess District 1 has encountered, I would suggest, a bit of an unusual winter. Warmest February, and March has been relatively cool. But we've had some infrastructure issues with regards to some roads being closed because of the melt. We've also seen some flooding because of frozen culverts. The runoff, I believe, has happened already. Most of the retained water has been soaking into the ground. Unless we have a Colorado low that brings us significant snow, I don't think we'll see any more runoff. There has been some challenges with regards to pricing inputs and delivery of those inputs, but I would suggest that that's happening now. Feed supplies, I think, are in pretty good shape. But I think for the most part, producers are just getting ready and wanting to get on the land and get doing what we do. So, but challenging winter, but nothing we haven't seen before.
Great. Thanks, Bill. District 2?
I'm on the line, Jill, but I'm not sure if I have much. I don't drink coffee.
Go ahead. Nope, go ahead, Scott.
This is Scott Melvin here from District 2, but I don't drink coffee. I don't go to the coffee shop, but I know that I'm getting ready, and we could use some more moisture for sure, but we're not that far from Bill, so I think we're about the same boat.
Okay, thank you very much, Scott. District 3?
Charles, do you want this one or do you want me to do it?
Either way, it's Charles Kunstler here from District 3. So we're getting ready to go here pretty soon. It's still pretty icy out there and the soil's pretty frozen, like you could tell. But yeah, any day now. As soon as the snow drift under the air seeder is dried out or thawed out enough there, we'll pull it out and start getting ready.
Great.
Soon.
Thanks, Charles. District 4.
Very much the same as what everyone else has said, if you can hear me.
Yep.
Our bridge on 311 is they've announced they're starting to build, which is good. I think the grain movement has moved okay. We can ship into the elevators if we want, and we're just waiting for it to warm up like everyone else.
Great. Thanks, Kevin, for that. District 5.
I can pop
Yes,
in
go
here.
ahead, Jana. Yep.
Yeah, we're in the same boat as everyone else. So we had a lot of melted snow that turned into water. So there are some concerns for winter wheat survivability and fall rye. But yeah, waiting on the weather to turn, and as soon as the last of the snow goes and the ice melts, we'll be getting the drills ready to hit the field, hopefully by I'm hoping end of April, if we're lucky. So
Great. Thanks, Jenna. And then I have a comment here from, I guess, from Ingrid from the Sheep Association. And they're right now providing workshops, shearing and wool handling, getting started on some sheep workshops that are coming up for shows upcoming in August 16th and 17th. And producers have issued issues with predation, especially wolves, and they've been faced with some livestock losses, and they will reach out to KAP for some further discussions on that. And I know that KAP is we will be engaging with Manitoba Crop Insurance here later on this spring after their new board has been accustomed to their new roles to have our annual discussions with crop insurance to maybe discuss further that. Thanks for those comments, Ingrid. And then Maureen Cousins also made a comment from the beef producers. And this was in regards to the verified beef program and management of health products. There is an animal health product checklist, which states to empty the containers stored for appropriate disposal and have a plan for disposal. she's not seeing anything about specific time, but definitely we maybe can touch back, and I know that Serena was going to check on timing of collection of those items. So thanks for that, Maureen. And so we're down to District 6 now.
Yes, thanks, Jill. District 6 hasn't had a district meeting, so I can't really speak to the west side of the district, but as far as the east side, and I'm sure it's pretty much the same everywhere, fields are mostly bare. Spring runoff will be minimal unless we happen to get another big storm. I think the main concerns that I'm hearing about are winter wheat and fall rye fields. Not that there's a lot of it around, probably have not survived the winter just because of the lack of snow cover, and then freezing and the cold weather that we've been experiencing lately. The other concern I'm hearing is from some livestock producers in the Woodlands area north of me, where their ponds and dugouts are quite low. And unless we have some significant moisture this spring, that could be a concern of, how do the cattle get water? Also, of course, pasture and hay fields will probably need some very timely spring rains. Otherwise, the pastures and hay crops will probably be very in short supply in that area. So I think that covers everything that I have for District 6, unless you got something to add, Jill.
Nope, that's I think everything from our end, other than we're like the Southwest, we are having some issues with infrastructure and roads. And time will tell here with how fast it thaws here, if what it looks like here once spring comes around. District 8. Anyone from District 8? District 9. Oh, District 8? Yeah, go ahead.
District 8 just sent a note saying they can't get their bike to work or something.
Oh, okay. If there's anything, Ken, you can send it to the office just so we can update if there's anything from your district. District 9.
Keith, we're about the same as everybody else, just waiting to melt.
Okay, thanks, Keith. District 10, Shannon?
Yes, we're pretty much the same as everyone else. I do believe, though, that we have a bit more snow here. In the last storm, we got quite a dump, so our fields are not bare. And hopefully it'll leave a little bit of moisture for us this spring. And again, we are waiting, as everyone else, for it to warm up.
Great, thanks, Shannon. And is there anyone from either District 11 or 12? North of the park or Dauphin area? Okay, that's it for reports across the province. I would actually like to make a point as far as engagement of the staff in getting out to some different areas. I know with both the first aid courses being held, one in the Verdon area and one in Steinbach, as well as the staff and was able to go out to a couple ag trade information shows, one particularly on the east side of the city in the Broken Head Ag Society or Ag meeting, as well as we were able to go to Dauphin to their Ag Society meeting. So definitely on the front of getting out and engaging with farmers that don't traditionally or haven't come out to our district meetings. We've forged ahead and actually made some really good connections specifically in the Dauphin area. So that is great engagement. Before I go to Q&A here to answer a few of the questions that we had addressed at the beginning of the meeting, I want to a shout out to our staff for doing a lot of that outreach and certainly engagement and planning from the office. And then I also would like to welcome Scott, Jason, and Jeneth and Christy Lane, who actually are all part of our board currently. And you know, we have a very diverse board now that's made up with a considerable number of young producers. So it's great to see. We've always, you know, that's one of our pillars, is trying to get that involvement of that next generation. So thank you again for stepping up and being a part of our board. And it's great having you there. And so on that note, we will go to Q&A. Just a couple of the, okay, so Bill, you brought up the Sustainable Canadian Agricultural Partnership. Was it something specific that you were wanting, that information, or what was your comment? You just said SCAP. So what, it's pretty open-ended question. What would you like to know?
Well, thank you, Jill. My question is with regards to the follow-up and the feedback. Has there been any conversation with the government for those that were declined on the initial response as to the validity or the merits or that part? And I understand that there was a oversubscription for funding, but it would have been beneficial to find out what the criteria and different format was used. Also, I had numerous conversations with Department of Agriculture people when they opened up again for the February 13th and asked if there was additional funding or reallocation or all of that part, and they didn't seem to be able to provide an answer. So I felt that there was no sense in reapplying when there was no direction given. When you were declined the first time, why would you go back without any other details on reapplying? And so I just felt that there needs to be some accountability or transparency in the process on the SCAP application.
Okay, I can actually talk to you after the meeting specifically. I know that it was outlined that you did not meet the appropriate number. I know that in our meetings with the department, they were more than willing to speak to individuals. And then when it was reopened, I know that the application process has closed for the second period. So certainly we can touch base with you on that. I know that the government, that the program did do a considerable amount of information on their website, as far as YouTube. There's videos on the application process, but certainly it might be appropriate to have a webinar specifically for producers to engage with questions on a webinar basis on programming coming up. And you had a second question on committees as well, Bill?
Well, I guess, yeah, and it's been touched on a little bit, but was just curious the status of that and if there was a policy change. And I guess I understand with your comments with regards to having some positive feedback to the membership or those said committees. And that may happen in June, but also in light of the interaction of primary producers and these committees, that if we wait until June, the government will not be sitting through the summer, and how we will be able to achieve recommendations for fall time or anything like that. And I guess I would suggest that we move ahead with them as quickly as we can. That part, but I understand it's management team decision and all of that part. But I think that interaction is very valuable to the committees. And one last note that I had, and I guess it's been mentioned and it changed on Monday, but I would like to express my thank you to KAP and the team that was in Ottawa and executive for the announcement of the APP increase to $250,000. I think that is a significant win for producers, that we have that interest-free portion. And I think that has been built into business plans for farmers. And I really felt that the 100,000 was a real step backwards. So thank you once again to those involved for lobbying and speaking on behalf of farmers for the increase to the.
Thank you, Bill, for that. Just on the comment of the committees, I think as we evolve, the role of the committees is to provide information on submissions and provide to actually have a role in you know, something that is actually occurring. I know that the policy work certainly has not stopped since you know, the fall. So as far as the files that KAP is working on, those files are continuing, and we definitely have not stopped our work on that end. And then the role of those committees is actually to provide some of that vital information that we need when we go to provide a submission. So I think the role of the committees may have changed as far as providing information at a district level. Certainly, if we need to provide more information at that level, then it would be on a different engagement level rather than what you know, the traditional role of the committees are. But like Neil had mentioned, those committee schedules will continue, and we'll have those in place, and hopefully engage with producers. It's worked well virtually, so that will continue into the future. Les, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I was concerned about the director vacancies now. District 7 has been vacant for, I think, 3 years now. Is that the only one at present, or is there other vacancies?
Currently, District 7 is vacant, and like I mentioned before, we have done considerable amount of engagement in those areas through other events. So we're hoping, and I know that I think Jake has had to leave the call, but I know that when the meeting was held in Verdun, there was some great discussion with producers in that area, and I think you know, joining our efforts with other associations and other events has proven successful. I know that we've had a lot of engagement in the Dauphin area, so you know, hopefully in the next I don't want to make promises, but we do have contacts with individuals in that area, and hopefully that seat will be filled, and we'll move forward to seeing District 7 position on the board filled as well. But I think from a diversification point of view and producers that are on the board, we all provide information for the best for KAP. We wear our KAP hats when we're around the table, and through engagements through other venues, we can reach out to those other areas to get input that is specific to those areas through other events. But thank you for your comment, and yes, we want all of those chairs filled for sure. Any other comments, please?
I wasn't done yet, Jill.
Oh, go ahead. Yep.
I had discussion, and I thought it was a waste of time for staff, but really just a suggestion: if one staff member phoned a District 7 producer every like, you could do 6 in half an hour from 12:30 to 1 o'clock when farmers are in the, and you do that for a week, you've got 30. You do it for 3 weeks, you've got 90 producers contacted, and ask them concerns, and is KAP doing a job for them, and would they be willing to come out to a lunch meeting, and maybe that way we could get a director out of District 7. But anyway, just a suggestion, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Les, for the suggestion. And we have a question from David Rourke.
Yeah, I had a number of things. First of all, of course, in your strategic plan, there's a couple keywords like trust and a unified message, and it almost seems like we're trading that off with engagement. And I know you said we were having good engagement, but in District 1 at our AGM, I can't remember if it was 4 or 6 farmers from District 1 showed up. So that I wouldn't call that much for engagement, actually. It almost seems like there's a bit of a keep your head down and avoid controversy type of leadership. I suggested that I would volunteer for steering committee on living labs, and when I was on it last time, I suggested that should be more farmers than just myself, and we had Neil Galbraith and another lady join us. This time it sounds like Neil Overloop is going to be the representative, and no, that might be enough, but I think we should have at least one more farmer involved with that Living Labs program. So that's one thing. I mentioned before this SBTI scientific-based target initiative with making, there's over 7,900 companies that are now making pledges for net zero, and 70 to 90% of their emissions come from scope 3, which is us. About a week ago, Saskatchewan Association of Rural Municipalities made a resolution passed by 95% of their members that they wanted to essentially have Saskatchewan withdraw from any net zero initiatives. I'm in my PhD, I've been interviewing farmers in depth, and I've got farmers that suggest that this is an opportunity to be able to work with SBTI and those food companies. And then we have other farmers that I'm not working with directly, but have pushing back much the same as the SARM. So, you know, if we need some leadership in this file, we're not doing a good job. I've talked to some MPs that are in pretty good position, and they don't know what SBTI is or what it means. So I think there needs to be much more emphasis on that. We've got land clearing going on in Manitoba. I'm told about 160,000 acres in the Interlake area. I'm not sure if we don't need some regulation to have approvals of that kind of thing, if these are what I'm told by their neighbors, very delicate lands. And is that going to be, you know, there's already, you can't sell canola to Cargill if you have break land. So I think that needs to be discussed much more. It's, you know, Bill congratulated KAP for their involvement with increasing that interest rate relief, and you suggested that was vital. I think what's more vital is profitability going ahead, and what's happened and with land prices. You know, successful mature farmers can't afford to buy the land that they've rented for years. So never mind what that does to young farmers, but there's something broken here, and I know it's called capitalism, and it's whoever can afford it, but I think there's a lot of outside money that's maybe pushing some of that head, and some of it's just consolidation that, you know, if you've got 10,000 acres and want to buy another quarter section, price isn't usually a problem, but if you only have a half section, want to buy a quarter, you can't afford even to look at it. Good, that's
Sure, all valid concerns, David, and certainly we are involved in the discussion of net zero, and I think maybe, I don't know if Neil has any more insight, like he can probably provide some more clarity on meetings and discussions that we're having in regards to that concern with, you know, your mention of the 7,900 companies that are moving, you know, to claim, and where does that put farms? We are working and we are involved. We certainly will we'll add that to you know, for discussion in our that committee meeting coming up, but it's certainly that we're not looking and involved in those discussions. And to your concerns about sustainability, that was one of the first, that's the lead comment that we had when we went and discussed in our advocating at the federal level and provincial level. Farmers have to be sustainable, and that means financially sustainable. So that's not unlost. And it's certainly, if I can quote the prior president of KAP, that we can't be green if we're in the red. So that's something that is first and foremost in any of our discussions that we have. Neil, did you want to make another comment on the first point that David had before I go on to the we'll entertain one more question from Chuck or a comment after Neil.
Yeah, just to comment on the steering committee. So you are right. I did put my name to sit on that committee. We can discuss this further at the Environment Committee to see if there's any producers that would be interested in sitting on this committee. Then I can forward those names to the organization at that time.
Thank you very much, Neil. Chuck, you have a last question or a last comment for the group?
Just a couple of follow-up comments for David there, especially about the scope 3 and 4 emissions. I mean, I know PepsiCo, and I think you had mentioned Nestle are two of the companies that are out there talking about scope 3 emissions. And just for everybody else's understanding, scope 3 emissions are basically the emissions that farmers create in growing the crops that we need to sell to companies like Nestle's and Pepsi. So that so far, I mean, a lot of organizations are involved in that discussion. I believe the Canadian canola growers are having discussions with companies. Definitely the Canola Council of Canada is having discussions with them. But as yet, none of these companies are really mandating or telling farmers what to do. There's lots of talk around regeneration. There's lots of talk about sequestration, but these companies are still trying to figure out exactly what farmers do and how we're trying to improve our production and reducing our emissions. Scope 4 is something kind of new. I just heard about it a few weeks ago, and I believe that is basically where companies, as you said, are trying to talk about how they are taking carbon out of the air and sequestering it or locking it up somehow so that we're reducing the amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. And that is very much in the early stages of discussions, I believe. And again, it's going to be a lot of information and I think a lot of education of these companies about how farming works, how different farms operate in different parts of the world, because certainly growing conditions are different in Canada than they are in Brazil. So you got to take a lot of these things into consideration when you're having those talks. The other thing, you mentioned breaking land and how Cargill is not taking canola from farmers that are breaking land. My understanding is as long as Canadian farmland does not show a net increase. In other words, we might be breaking land, but we're also losing farmland to urban expansion. So as long as that net acreage does not increase, it's not a concern for most other countries that are dealing with this whole idea of, knocking down forests and breaking it up into farmland. So Canada so far has not really been impacted by a lot of those regulations that Europe's putting forward. It's probably more aimed at Brazil and other countries where they are knocking down lots of tropical forests and breaking the land and putting it into agriculture. But I haven't heard of too many issues like that happening in Canada. So just two comments to feedback on David's. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Chuck. In the essence of time, I think we covered the additional comments or concerns that farmers had here at the beginning of the meeting. I know that our agenda was just till 11 o'clock, but we have covered off everything that we wanted to be discussed. Thank you again, everyone, for attending today. And I guess I will ask at this time someone for an adjournment for our meeting today. That's
Les
Mike.
Ferris, District 2.
Okay, so I've got Mike and Les. Thank you very much, everyone. Safe seating, and I hope things warm up and we all get into the field. And we'll talk soon. Thank you very much, everyone.